Hello, welcome to Hard Refresh, the official podcast from State of Social 2025. What are we doing here, you might ask? Well, we are polishing off our standard issue State of Social crystal ball and diving deep into the next 25 years of digital marketing, trying to understand the technologies and trends, the cultural shifts, and maybe even the controversies that are going to shape marketing in the next 25 years and society at large. My name is Andres Lopez Varela. You can call me ALV. Everybody does. Today we're recording on the lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people, live from State of Social 2025. In this episode, we do a hard refresh on culture making. Culture has always been the setting for marketing, but in the next 25 years, will marketers and creatives be bystanders? Will they be genuine culture makers? Will they be parasites? We're going to dive into the ways brands might create culture-defining moments in the future, how cultural movements might rub up against marketing strategies, and whether authenticity can survive the commoditization of identity and values. With politics, climate, diversity, and technology all reshaping society and our expectations of one another, it seems the stakes are higher than ever. So, do marketers help write the script for tomorrow's culture, or are they just trying to remix someone else's track? All right, I'm so happy to have a trio of big thinkers on this topic in the studio today. I'm very happy to be joined by Jonathan Harley, media and tech executive, who has worked at Canva, Twitter, 60 Minutes, and more. Jonathan, howdy. Thanks for being here.
Hey, great to be here.
Very happy to have you. Thank you. Tess Palmier, who was named an Ad News Champion of Change in 2025, and who is also the founder of Brandable, an agency that's building inclusive brands. Tess, so happy to be sitting across from you again.
It's really great to be back.
Thank you. And Tim Duggan, award-winning author, columnist, and chair of the Digital Publishers Alliance. Thank you very much for joining us straight after your deep dive presentation, Tim.
Thanks for having me. It's going to have hopefully we have a great conversation.
Yes. We're getting to the end of State of Social now. It's getting to the end of day 2. Has everyone had a good time?
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really good.
Such a great vibe in the room, isn't it?
It is quite amazing. I spoke 3 years ago, but I was on Zoom.
I remember
and
that,
it is, I obviously don't feel a thing when you're on Zoom.
Yes.
You just see this room, and it's quite amazing to see the community of people and the number of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's such a great event. For my money, and of course, I'm not contractually obligated to say this, but I will say I think it's the best marketing event in Australia, in my opinion. Anyway, everyone ready?
Ready and waiting.
Absolutely.
Time to do a hard refresh. I know we're going to talk about the future here, but I want to ask a question first about the recent past, kind of help us get our bearings. I'm going to ask you to jump into the fire first, Tess. When you think of the biggest cultural moments of like the last, say, 5 years, from, like Black Lives Matter to Barbie, how much credit or how much blame do you think belongs to marketers? Like, are we leading this culture, or are we hitchhikers on this culture?
That's a really great question. I think for the most part, we do really like shiny things. Mm. And when there's something we can, bandwagon to jump on, it's really tempting, and it's really hard to go against that, that temptation. But I think some people do go against it. They're the ones that are going to challenge whatever the status quo is, or whatever the norm, messaging is. They're going to challenge it. Mm. It's just too tempting. I mean, there are opportunities there. It's really short-term gains. So, I think people like to jump on board and make the most of it. Yeah. There's always exceptions to the rule. I always talk about that in my presentations and other talks that I've given in other places. You have to decide whether you're going to reflect the world as it is, or the world that you want to see. Like, are you going to perpetuate the status quo, or will you challenge it? And I think that really comes down to the individual marketer.
What do you think, Tim?
I think we're entering a new era of brands where I think that brands are being pushed a little bit to the side.
Yeah.
Particularly when you think about ways in which brands in the past might have led conversations. I feel brands now have to follow conversations. And I think this is coming from a global perspective. So think about Trump in the US, for example. Something that's happened this week was a logo got changed of Cracker Barrel. I don't know if you saw that, which is a chain of restaurants in the US that changed their brand. And Cracker Barrel had a man sitting on a rocking chair next to an old barrel, and they changed their logo. They refreshed it and made it a little bit more modern. And it entered the culture wars. Donald Trump, the president of the United States, was tweeting about the brand the logo saying go back to what it used to be. All the conservatives then boycotted it. And what I saw 4 hours ago is they've gone back to the original brand.
Come back to the original brand.
And I kind of feel that brands are now kind of part of this like washing machine. I know that's a US example, but they're part of this washing machine of they're reacting to what happens in the world instead of leading what happens in the world.
I think that's a really interesting point, because I've been talking about this with quite a few people, and I talked about it in my session yesterday. I think you've got to be true to your values. I don't know if you saw the Bluey session.
Yes.
Be guided by your values. The brands that stick to their DNA and who they are, I still think they can ride through that. Not many brands do.
Yeah, except when values are all good and important, but when politics and the president, the most powerful man in the world, steps into your logo redesign,
Yeah.
like what can you do? You might have all the values in the world, but the CEO is getting thrown under a bus.
You're still going to shit a brick. over that
Yeah, you're still
situation,
going to go back to the old logo. And I just think the fact that the President of the United States is talking about a logo change, which is something that really concerns people in this room who spend all this time on it. And you like that to me is just wild that it's become part of the culture.
Because what you're seeing here is both an acceleration of culture and a magnification of the stakes, effectively, or the sense of the stakes. So in other words, things go bigger, cultural moments go bigger, and they move much more quickly, right? So that's a great example where suddenly what should have just been a pretty rudimentary brand refresh, became this great cultural, political, you name it, moment about, which is, of course, in some ways just super cynical and calculated and distracting, but is also powerful because it's feeding into what is this really acute sense of identity or an identity dynamic that's happening politically, culturally, etc. And to your point, Tess, that's why the values piece as an anchor is all the more important as that, I think of it as ballast in the hull in these kind of cultural seas that are all the more rocky and all the more turbulent that all brands are trying to navigate on.
Absolutely.
I think this relates to, kind of leads me into a related topic, which is about purpose, the use of purpose in marketing. I think brands have hit this hard, especially since the pandemic. I think maybe in some ways, maybe we've seen overcorrection, not sure, but it feels like, played out or disingenuous at this stage. But it does seem like those brands who say that their values are in some way perhaps aligned to whatever their interpretation of purpose is, does that need to stay in the brand toolkit for the future, Jonathan? Or has it become this kind of expensive boondoggle that we can't get rid of?
It absolutely has to stay. And one of the primary reasons why it has to stay, before you even think about audience or customers, it's actually increasingly an important part of recruitment. I think we've seen this massive, and Tess, I'm sure this is familiar in your work. You're seeing the next generation of workers and employees, and Timber touches on your work as well. They expect an employer, a brand, a business which has a very clear sense of purpose to help them understanding the meaning of how they're allocating their time. So even before you get just, as you're building and running a business, to getting the right people in, you need that clear sense of purpose. And I think that is equally reflected out in the external, in the public, in the consumer realm, because where it's most powerful is if you can get that alignment, that internal alignment between how a team and a business is running and how it's turning up in the outside world. That's the red thread that you need to achieve. And again, can you do it without it? Probably, but I think it's really hard to.
I'm the biggest fan of purpose in the workplace. However, I'm starting to become really cynical about it. I am particularly seeing the way that things like diversity and DEI around the world has been a little bit thrown to the side by political machinations. And you can't tell me that there's organizations that wouldn't have said that part of their purpose is making sure that all their employees feel valued or that everyone has a say. And then political machinations happens and DEI gets a little bit thrown down. And the businesses just throw it off the side and keep going because their purpose is to make money.
I think that's not real purpose, like it comes down.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So I think the difference here is your marketing team using purpose as some sort of marketing lever, or is it a real part of the brand's DNA? And like you say, it's about attracting the right people. Your people make the brand, even if it's not a service, brand, even if it's a product-based thing, they're building the products, and their thoughts and the decisions they make go into the experience that people have of that brand.
Yeah, I had a really interesting first-hand experience of this at Canva as we were building out the partnerships team at Canva, where I've always think it's about value, an alignment of values, and then a creation of value, right? Especially in the partnerships game. And I actually had an incident where a prospective partner I hopped on a Zoom call, it was middle of COVID, and they led with, this is a great partnership because we're both mission-driven, purpose-driven, values-driven businesses, and established that as a clear fact. And I was sort of like, great, tell me where you see the alignment. And they couldn't. Right?
So they just said it because
they just asserted it, but there was nothing.
There was a slogan on a wall.
You could just see through it straight away. I was just like, and I literally was just like, honestly, we start with values, then we talk value.
Totally.
Nice assertion. It's not there. Thanks very much. And it just didn't stack together. We didn't go any further.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to walk the talk. It's got to have, it's got to actually mean something. And sadly, I think we are in this moment, Tim, where that is being really sorely tested.
Yeah.
And in many cases, the results aren't great.
Yeah, I think purpose is one of these things that in the easy times, it's so easy to say it, and it can be meaningless words on a wall. And then hard times happen, and you have to make a decision. Are you actually going to live by that purpose, or is it just something that you said in order to attract good talent? And we are seeing, I think, some businesses and some brands either living up to that, or as Warren Buffett said, when the tide goes out, you see who's not wearing any swimmers.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're seeing.
I mean, Target in the US was an example I used yesterday of a brand that just bailed this year, after all the anti-DEI backlash that happened in the US and the political pressure. They backed right off their DEI commitments, like a lot of companies did. Their CEO announced that he was going to step down just last week. And their competitor, Costco, in the US, their foot traffic has gone up. Target has gone down. So the difference, though, is Costco was consistent with their values.
Wow.
All the way through.
Yeah, consistency is key.
Yeah.
And I don't think people are going to forget this. I think, when a brand, times will change. Political is the one constant, is that change is always going to happen. And there'll come a moment again where Target will realise that it's beneficial for them to come out and say, we actually support every person. And I don't think people are going to forget. The people have long memories. Yeah. And I think it's great that it's catching up with CEOs and with businesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to, thank you for that. I want to, move forward a little bit in time. Join me in the, 2030s, let's say, flying cars, hoverboards, all that kind of stuff. Let's make a reasonable assumption that culture, as you said, John, continues to move at like warp speed, even faster than warp speed. And that that's kind of dissolving the idea of monoculture, that there is no monoculture at all. It's just fragmented into a million subcultures, and it's driven by everything from TikTok sounds to, spicy subreddits and AI slop, all that stuff, right? Imagine that's the space, right? And tell me, Jonathan, do you think marketers should even try to play in that space? You made the point before that it's all, culture is moving so fast and it gets so big so quickly, but then it also disappears really quickly and we move on to the next thing. And is this something, should marketers just kind of stay out? It's going to be so hard to make anything meaningful that sticks.
Look, I think it depends. I think it depends on the brand. I think it depends on the strategy. But what I would say is you can't escape culture. you can't ignore it. So you've always got to be keeping a very strong eye to, what is happening, how you're playing in it. I mean, I think there's huge value in opportunistic cultural moments and leveraging those. I think as was said yesterday, timeliness beats perfection every time. So if you can be in that moment and you can leverage it, fantastic. But that's not an easy thing to do. So you got to, so that's again also about this sort of empowering your team, being able to move quickly, being able to, bounce to that moment and having the right sort of governance around it.
I mean, the Cracker Barrel example is a great example, right? Like, what does it say? Like between 2 or 3 days, culture sucked it up, turned it into something big. Trump talked about it, and then it's kind of like, okay, well, now nothing to say here. It seems to me, in the future, it's just going to be too fast for most brands to actually take advantage of that.
But what's the alternative? As in, a marketer is just not going to market. I think the marketers are going to have to find a way in order to insert themselves into, whether that's the AI slop or whether it's the, social video feeds going down to 1 second views or sub 1 second views. So, if the trajectory continues, we're soon going to just...
1 second video. Bang, bang,
1
bang,
second
bang,
video,
yeah.
totally, but just automatic thumbs.
Yeah.
But I think if you want to market something, you're going to have no choice but to jump in and play around. And I think, yes, there's a lot of negatives and there's going to be a lot of AI slop and all of the things that come with that. But I actually think it's going to have as many opportunities in it as well. So I think AI slop, which is arguably already here, is actually only going to show good content and let good content shine. Think of your LinkedIn. The amount of times when you can tell a post has been written by AI means that when someone comes and says something that is a little bit honest or is a little bit different, it breaks through.
Yeah.
And so I actually think that in a sea of sameness, there's going to be real opportunity to be a little bit different. And that's what marketers are going to need to grab hold of.
Seems risky though. What do you think, Tess?
I think humanity always floats to the surface. So, at the end of the day, we're looking for something real. We like perfection. We like efficiency. We like to be productive. And then we feel a little bit dead inside. And we gravitate back to something human and something a little bit chaotic and messy because that's who we are. So, like to add to your point, Tim, I think, we gravitate to those LinkedIn posts where it's like, there's a typo, but this is real.
100%.
And I connected with it on a much deeper human level, and that's so refreshing.
Yeah, I think social as well, that we've moved past beautiful photos of influencers into the era of real influencers and, no makeup. And I think we're craving humanity.
We are.
I think we're really trying to find it. And I, as an optimist, believe that AI is going to help us find our humanity because when everything becomes robotic and everything, every social video starts looking the same and every soon marketer is going to be using AI to create the same pack shots and the same headlines that we tested 1,000 times.
Optimized within an inch of its life.
Yeah, I think there'll be an opportunity for someone to come in there and just do the complete opposite, and that's when it get attention. So I think I'm actually hopeful that the future of AI means that the humanity is going to shine through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, things like the anti-DEI backlash, when it happened, I was thinking, what's happening in the world kind of thing. It was necessary and it was actually inevitable when you looked at the undercurrents, the culture wars, all the things that were going on in and around it. It was actually a necessary part of us moving forward to the next chapter, the pushback, and then really questioning, like, am I going to stand by that? Or am I going to pull away now because there's a move away from supporting DEI?
Yeah.
It does make you stop and question it. If it's something meaningful, you're going to follow through with it.
Yeah, thank you. I want to keep going ahead, like just more like towards the Jetsons' future.
Are we in which year are we in now?
Let's say 2040.
Wow.
Right?
Okay. Do not ask our ages in 2040.
Yeah. No. Well, we're all still in our mid-30s, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Great.
Okay.
Don't laugh when you say that.
I'm thinking of myself.
He said we're all in mid-30s and coughed.
Cough and splutter. Well, thanks for that.
This doesn't just happen by itself, you know.
No, yeah, of course, of course.
It's work.
Yeah,
It's work that
yeah.
goes in.
Yeah, all right. Well, you volunteered yourself now for this question,
Great.
Tim. Yeah. Do you think we'll see brands as kind of cultural institutions in their own right? You know, I have this idea or this thought that an organization like an LVMH, for example, could supplant Vogue because of the commercial models that work differently and better because of their integration with a bunch of other cultural, you know, their sponsorship of Formula One, I think, is a genius way of you know, ensuring relevance to a broader audience. Is it possible that these brands could become cultural institutions directing, you know, everything from, you know, fashion to music to all manner of taste and trend-driven stuff? Or do you see us rejecting that level of, I guess, corporate influence and turning to our micro communities and you know, our content creators and influencers that we feel that we trust more in smaller groups?
Yeah, I actually think that two things are going to happen. One is that the big brands are only going to get bigger. So the idea now that we're living in this era of mega brands, and if you think of the big brands in tech, for example, like Microsoft is just getting bigger, and Google is getting bigger, and it's kind
Even
of
NVIDIA, a chip maker.
yeah,
A chip
yeah,
maker,
totally.
yeah.
Just these huge mega brands, and I don't necessarily think that's a good thing, but it is an observational thing of what is happening. However, as they accumulate power and as they accumulate attention, I do think it allows in people's brains and minds the ability for new brands to come in and offer something different that they don't. A perfect example, and I think one of the biggest tech brands that did not exist basically 2.5 years ago, is OpenAI. OpenAI is now, you know, you'd almost put it up there. I think their last valuation was $500 billion US. So you put it up there, and they didn't have a product that you could buy 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now they have 800 million active users every single week. So the ability to accelerate a brand from zero to hero within 2.5 years and enter that is quite extraordinary. And I think, as you know, love or hate the brands, I think it's exciting that they're now using new technology and something like AI gives the ability for someone to go from, you know, not being heard of to ChatGPT would now be a household name around the world to billions of people.
Yeah. Jonathan, you've worked with a lot of big brands, you know. I mean, how do you understand this? Is it possible for these brands to exert a cultural influence in more ways than just like in their narrow lane?
Oh, they already are. I mean, I think to your question, will those big brands exercise cultural influence, or will there be more, you know, sort of this fragmentation and micro communities? And the answer is yes. And we're seeing that now. So, I mean, you just think about a brand like Red Bull, for example. Like that's a massive cultural driver in and of itself. And again, to the earlier point about the acceleration of everything, ChatGPT is a great example. Just the speed and size to which that's gone from nowhere in the vernacular to being, you know, just something that is universally known is extraordinary. So, and I think we'll see this, as Tim says, where, you know, the big will only be bigger and therefore, you know, almost their own kind of cultural climate creators. And then, you know, alongside that or around that, you'll have this fragmentation of tiny niches in this sort of multitudinous way. And I guess the challenge for everyone will be, you know, what does that mean for the job of marketing, storytelling, and finding your audience in a meaningful way, you know, which is you don't need a huge audience, but you need to know what that is and how that is.
A question, Jonathan. So a brand like Airbnb has expanded, and originally they were just, you know, houses and apartments, and they expanded into experiences, and they've kind of got a big vision. A brand like Canva that you know well, whose mission is to democratize design, to bastardize from some of their mission. You can probably tell me. Yeah. Do you ever see them expanding out? Like, would they do that and do design hotels by Canva? Would it be... And I know that's not in their current vision, and I know that you no longer work there.
Yeah.
But do you think a brand like that could stretch that far?
I think what's extraordinary about Canva in that mission of empowering the world to design is the way that it has evolved from empowering individuals, students, small businesses, mid-tier, and now enterprises. So an evolution of the business over 12 or 13 years. And the key word there is empowerment, right? So, I think the guiding, in my experience at Canva over five years, it was always about how do we provide people, businesses, schools, universities, everyone with the tools to then express, create, and go and do the thing in a visual way, right? So I think the more interesting space to look at with Canva will be what will people do with it as it goes to that next phase of, what will be the things that will happen on Canva or with Canva through integrations, through partnerships, through tech integrations, through APIs, etc., that are not foreseen yet. And the other thing that's relevant, particularly germane to this conversation, is Canva's genius has been the way it's fostered, supported, and grown communities, right? An authentic connection, a genius product, but then turning up for these, in some cases, professional communities. So, I led the partnership space with news and then entertainment and sports, etc., turning up with a really powerful tool, but also seeing the strategic or other needs or priorities of that space. But that's equally true for creators, for teachers, for students, etc. That is just such an extraordinary superpower. And I don't think we've even seen it begun.
That's one thing that stood out in your session yesterday was actually when you started talking about the community that you've built around Canva. To me, that's when I feel like brands can still have the power to start a movement if they approach it in the right way. And that word, empowering your customers, helping to build that community, and you're actually decentralizing the power that you have as a brand. You're handing it over to the collective, and they're running with it, and they own it. And there's this really sort of powerful potency that comes with that, because then your customers are like, this brand is part of who I am, or it's helped me to connect with other people, and it just it takes on a life of its own. That's really the genius behind it.
And that's the world we're living in, where you've got these two currents. On the one hand, you've got consolidation and the big get bigger, but you've also got a decentralization of tools, a decentralization of electricity, a decentralization of communities, in some ways a decentralization of money, of politics.
Yeah.
So, and that is a bit of a tide, right? And the tide is coming in and moving and bouncing around a lot at the moment. But I do think, it's really important just to see the way the technology is having this really massive structural effect on so many different parts of our lives, and inevitably that means the culture, and inevitably that makes it both challenging but also really exciting for brands in how they turn up. And it is that interesting exercise of I've got to let go a bit and then see what happens, and then take that, work with that, and move it forward.
Which I think is why it's so important to have your values as your anchor.
Sure.
Right? Because you are not controlling everything, but you need something to steer the ship.
100%.
So you're still sending that real strong message to the community. This is what we stand for.
Yeah.
This is our purpose, and our values tell us how we live that out or how we bring it to life.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that these last 2 days has reinforced for me is, we all know instinctively authenticity is the thing, right? That with authenticity, that drives connection, and connection drives community, and community is built on trust, and trust, is broken in a minute if there's a sense that the authenticity is gone. And I've actually thought more and more clearly this last day or two that authenticity is actually grounded in values. That it is that, because it's like, how do I be authentic? Well, like to your session, Tim, understand what the values are and then let that inform the way you show up.
And if you haven't figured that out in the first place, you're just going blind.
Yeah,
driving blind.
You've got
Not
a
going
problem
blind.
there. Yeah. All right, this has been great. Before we wrap it up, I want to do our sort of rapid fire refresh round.
Whoa.
So these questions are there for you to be as spicy as you want, right?
Game on.
No problems with this group, I think. Right? In 2050, will brands as we know them still exist, or will we have hit refresh on that whole idea?
Yes, they'll exist and it'll be refreshed.
Be different.
It'll be different.
Different, yeah.
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 I worry that there'll be 10 brands that will matter
Yeah.
and 10 million that will be fighting for that tiny bit of scraps underneath it.
Yeah.
I think the essence of a good brand will always remain. I think how we express brands, where we show up, who shows up will change naturally as technology evolves and, what we have access to.
Yeah, good. Great.
And can I just say, Tim,
Yes.
I think those 10 million brands, they've got a bright future because they'll actually decide what is enough for them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't love the idea of having 10 mega brands, but it feels like, those dystopian movies where everything is like one mega app. There's one company that controls everything. We're heading towards there. Where the oligarchs are fighting out between themselves who's going to be those 10 brands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the death of brands or death of marketing, because I agree with Jonathan. I think the other 10 million brands will be fighting and will have to be, fighting for the crumbs of attention and budgets and time and energy that scares me and excites me at the same time.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, next one. What's one marketing buzzword you'd refresh straight into the garbage?
Authenticity.
Oh, that's actually been a favourite. I should have been keeping a tally on the wall because I reckon that's been said like 24 times. Anyone else?
Well, look, I actually think there's I'm writing a story at the moment about the entire lexicon of like corporate bullshit. So just everything from like getting our ducks, synergy's up there, getting our ducks in a row, circling back. I think all of them. And 70% of the research I saw recently was 70% of people use it. And most of us do it without realizing.
Yeah, correct.
And so I'm on this mission with myself to call out myself when I hear myself doing it. Let's circle back on that. And I'll get back to you by COB and just like call bullshit on myself. So I would like everyone to give permission to call bullshit on me. And I'll call bullshit on you. Deal?
There you go. Everyone, you can call bullshit on Tim Duggan.
Please
There you
do.
go.
Yeah.
Please do.
I'm just terrible at corporate speak.
As in you use it a lot?
No, I mean, I'm terrible at doing it.
That's good, Jonathan.
And sometimes
good, man.
like an email, sometimes I need to write an email in its particular sort of language. Like I'd find it, I could much more easily make a documentary now than actually write this email.
How funny. I find myself, I think the most common thing I do in my email is delete, I hope you're well.
Yeah,
It's
me too,
literally,
me too,
and
yeah.
I write
I've-
it, and then I just sometimes it gets through. So if you've ever received an email from me, you probably have, and I hope you're well on there.
Yeah.
But it's just this thing I'm fighting. It's like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
wasting time and energy and someone's
Right.
attention.
Yeah.
I think email is to blame for all the buzzwords.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
especially, so someone was showing me yesterday here, and they were using Superhuman, which is an app that does your email for you.
yeah.
And I was like, so what does it do? And Pat showed me, and he got it out, and he said, so instead of writing an email, I just say into AI, send this person a message, tell them I can't go for lunch. And then the message came up. And that's kind of this like weird future that we're in right now, which is fine, I think, for people like us who are of a certain age, I'm talking about myself here, who have written emails for our whole careers.
Mid-30s.
In mid-30s, thank you. And know how to write them. But then the problem is, I really feel for someone who's 20 and comes into the workforce and has never going to have to write an email.
exactly.
They're never going to have to delete, I hope you're well.
That's it,
Because
yeah.
AI will do it for them.
Yeah. They're never gonna
Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue to the next question. If AI got a chance to refresh your job description, what would it throw out? What would it say? You don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, I can tell you what it would throw out in mine. So
Yeah.
I write a lot.
Yeah.
I write books, currently writing my 4th book. I write a weekly column. And I could, if I wanted to today, my story's due at the end of today, I've got to hand it in, I could go into AI and say, write me a column on this topic in the style of Tim Duggan.
Yeah.
and it would do it and it would be okay. So I could do that tomorrow. I will never do that, number one. But two, like actively fight against that, because I think that is where this sea of mediocrity comes out. Because yes, it will be a column. Yes, it will be okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it could get you through and it would probably be half readable. But you have to like fight against that if we want to maintain our humanity and maintain some creativity.
Yeah.
Not to say I'm not going to use AI. I'll put a column through there and say, can anything be tightened up, or can you find spelling mistakes in this, or do any of have I put some corporate jargon in here that I need to take out? But that's one part that I think could take off my CV right now, but I will never let it take off.
Yeah, fair enough. Good on you.
That's a tricky one, because I feel like what I do is about kind of grappling with the messiness of humanity.
Sure.
Extreme messiness.
And I'm not really sure
thing,
what
yeah.
AI is going to
Get rid
help
of
with
for
there.
you.
But I think,
A lot of people have said that it would get rid of their like admin or their zero.
I think things like admin and as a research tool, it's really helpful.
Yeah.
With the right prompts.
Yes. Yeah.
It's really great. You know, you can really get to the content that you need, and
Excellent for research.
Yeah,
This
really
is
great.
the current book I'm writing is the first one I've written when AI is like properly here and
Yes.
it's properly good, as in you can get it to do research and do proper reports. I used to have a research assistant, and their job was going out and looking through research papers, summarizing them for me, and pointing me in which direction so that I wouldn't spend 10,000 hours trying to do that. AI now does that exceptionally, and I think my writing and my quality of what I do is so much better.
It's a superpower.
Because it's synthesizing it for me.
There you go.
I do feel like though you've got to be clear on the kinds of insights you want pulled sometimes.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, you've got to train the thing.
yeah,
train it.
because the summary might leave out some things that you would naturally
Yes.
lean into and go,
Yes.
that is fascinating.
Yes.
I also
Yeah,
do
that's it.
not trust it.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah,
it's like
that's right.
it's like a
Yeah.
research assistant who points me in the right direction, and I'm like, "Thank you very much," and they leave the room. I'm like, "Oh my god,
No, you
I
gotta
need to
verify.
look over their
Yeah,
work."
yeah,
So
that's
every
right.
single outcome that they say,
Yeah.
the only reason is basically for me, it's like a really good Google.
Yeah.
And then I need to go and look
100%.
at the things.
I do the same. Yeah.
And then, as a recovering journalist, I've always strongly been of the view that there's a real power in thinking through your fingers.
100%.
It's actually in the motion of typing and writing and that cognitive work, building on that research, building on that base. But it is actually in the doing that you get to the refinement of the idea, which is hopefully a unique idea, but also reinforces it in your own head.
Thank you, guys. What a fascinating chat. I'm so happy that we got into it. We really hit it hard. So thank you very much, Jonathan Harley, Tess Palmier, Tim Duggan, for joining me today. Hope you enjoy what's left of State of Social.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
you.
Elvie.
Thank you.
If you like this refreshing conversation, you're going to love the rest of Hard Refresh. Join me and the smart minds of the State of Social 2025 crew as we try to figure out what's coming next in digital marketing. All episodes are now live wherever you get your podcasts. And remember that sharing is caring. So tell a friend if you like what you hear and give us a rating or a review to help other people find the show. Hard Refresh is a co-production of State of Social and Original Audio. The show is produced by me, Andres Lopez Varela, and Aaron Matthews at Original Audio. Thanks also to Cal McLean for production support and to our executive producer, Meg Coffey. I'm ALV. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. Remember to hit Hard Refresh.